And once again, thanks to Citizens State Bank for sponsoring this episode of Fridays with Larry. Learn more about their business and personal banking options at mycsbin.com/Larry. Or stop by their Fishers branch at the Thomas A. Weaver Municipal Complex. Thanks again to Citizens State Bank, member FDIC and equal housing lender, for supporting local journalism in Fishers. Welcome to this week's Fridays with Larry podcast. Going to do things a little bit differently this week. I do not have a guest. Sometimes people just ask me, what about my background? Where did I come from? So I'm just going to give you a little information on that this week, tell you a little bit about myself. I grew up in the city of Indianapolis. I lived for years in the Forest Manor neighborhood until I was a sophomore in high school. Went to Catholic school grades 1 through 9, graduated from Arlington High School with the last 3 years of high school in 1969. So, I went through all those 1960s issues that came up, obviously, from the Kennedy assassination to Vietnam, and of course, Watergate ended up happening in the 70s, but it was a turbulent time in America, something we're familiar with, I guess, in America these days. But after I graduated from high school, I went to what is, I guess you would describe as a trade school. It was called the Institute of Broadcast Arts. And I think the name was much classier than the actual operation. I did learn some things there, got a job in broadcasting. I want to tell you a little bit about the man I worked for in my very first broadcasting job. It was not an on-the-air job. It was mostly an engineering job, changing tapes and records and that sort of thing, watching a transmitter, doing those things we used to do in the old days, which are done more or less automatically today. Needed a human being to do it back at that time. But I worked for a man named Martin Williams. This was 1969. He was, I think, 65 years old at the time. What I think is interesting is that here I was, a teenager, started working for him when I was in high school. And this man who was my employer, age 65, when he was a young man, had met a man named Guglielmo Marconi. Now, Guglielmo Marconi is the man that invented wireless communications. First it was Morse code, then voice, then music, and all that came later. But it was Marconi, the Italian engineer, who invented all that. He spent time in America. And Martin Williams, the man for whom I worked, actually had known Marconi. So here I worked for a man who knew the man, or at least had talked to him, that invented wireless communications. Just kind of an interesting aspect of how technology has grown so fast just through my lifetime. But I ended up working on the air. I programmed radio stations, played music, just really enjoyed that. Being a program director of a radio station was something I just enjoyed very much. I ended up realizing that I needed to go to college, so I ended up in 1973 enrolling at IUPUI, now called IU Indianapolis. Most of my classes were IU, not Purdue. So I was able to do that. I continued working in broadcasting, but I varied what I was doing. I started working in news in 1973, part of the time. Then I ended up going into hosting talk shows, which, that was quite an experience for me. I did a radio show called Night Action. That was in the Indianapolis market. It was started 11 p.m., went to the 3 or 4 a.m. at different times. And you get lots of interesting people calling you in the middle of the night. Some of them were really great. Some were a little off the rocker, but it made for interesting radio. And I had the opportunity to interview a number of very interesting guests. So that was quite the experience. Ended up working as a program director there at that radio station promoted there, and then ended up working for a man I'd known before named Dave Keister in a radio station in Martinsville. After that, I did a little bit of everything, sports, news, you just do it all there. But what I ended up doing was going to Columbus, Indiana this was 1977, late in that year. And I ended up working for 77 or 78. I'm a little fuzzy on the exact years now. But I ended up working at WCSI in Columbus, Indiana, which was a very reputable radio station, had been around for a long time. I was the morning news anchor, and I covered education and, when asked, covered all kinds of other things. So I did news for the first time as a full-time person and loved every moment of that. That ended in 1982, and excuse me, sorry about that. I just sort of tried to figure out what I was going to do at that point. Ended up working for Network Indiana for a number of months, and then decided perhaps it was time to change professions, and I changed to become a civil servant. And we'll learn more about that coming up. Today's episode of Larry in Fishers is brought to you by Citizens State Bank. For over 150 years, Citizens State Bank has been committed to the communities they're rooted in, providing more than just banking services and products, but a true community partner dedicated to giving back and supporting our community's growth. How? By making sure you and your local business owners have the products, tools, and expertise you need to thrive. In addition to everyday checking and savings accounts, Citizens State Bank offers a selection of business and personal financing products, plus a team of local experienced lenders who are as invested in your success as you are and committed to helping you secure the right financing for your needs. Skip the call centers and hold music and get the friendly hometown service you deserve, the modern digital banking tools you expect, and relationships that grow with you, whether you're running a business or managing everyday finances. You can visit Citizens State Bank's Fishers branch inside the Thomas A. Weaver Municipal Complex at 9 Municipal Drive, Suite 5, or learn about it more online. mycsbin.com/Larry. That's mycsbin.com/Larry. Thanks to Citizens State Bank, member FDIC and equal housing lender, for supporting local news and the Fishers community. So I ended up working for the federal government in 1983. It ended up being a 28-year career for me. And I must say it was rewarding. I garnered a lot of awards. It was fulfilling work. You're part of something much bigger than yourself when you're working for the federal government. My father had been, for all of his working life practically, a civil servant, worked for the Department of Defense. I was very proud of his work. He did very important work, and I think he was proud of what he did for the Department of Defense, working at what was then called the Army Finance Center in 56th Street and Post Road in Indianapolis. It is now, I think, called DFAS. It's an accounting service for the Defense Department, and there are other agencies in that building. It's no longer just a defense building. But I ended up working, again, 28 years. I worked for the Defense Department for just really a few weeks and ended up working for the Department of Treasury, working in tax for most of the rest of my career. Had a chance to do an awful lot of public speaking. I did some internal teaching. I did some teaching from both Indiana University and Purdue University. The government would loan me out to do some instructing, and all that was a great experience for me. But I must tell you, one of the greatest things that I ever had the chance to do was once I retired, because in 2012, I'd been a manager in the federal government for about 4 years, and I decided that it was time to retire. I was eligible in 2012 at age 60, So I had not, I did retire, but I didn't just totally stop working, obviously. I ended up doing a lot of other things. I worked 1 year doing some tax help for a software company. I then went for the next 5 years, did teaching for Indiana University. I did a class called the tax professor, I guess the tax preparers continuing education, tax practitioner institute is what you called that. Did that for 5 years. And you travel around the state, get to meet a lot of different people, had the chance to work with some great people that are with Indiana University as part of that contract work that I did as an instructor there. But I think the most rewarding thing I have done, especially since I've retired from the federal government, is starting this local news blog in Fishers, Indiana, which I had no idea whether anyone would be interested in what I had to write. I started in 2012 just showing up for town council meetings and later school board meetings. I put this rudimentary blog up and just started posting what I saw there using my experience as a news reporter to just explain what's going on to people who have busy lives in Fishers. It's just kind of a small condensed summary of what happened at these meetings, thinking that people might have some interest. I thought I might get a few hundred people interested in reading this. Of course, Fishers was a smaller place in 2012 than it is now. We're talking tens of thousands of people now. We're talking over 100,000 people living in Fishers. But what I found very quickly is that there was a hunger for local news. And more and more people, the word got around. I didn't do a lot of promotion really, but the word got around. And in 2012, I started this blog, and now I have over 100,000 unique visitors a year to my blog, which is something I never could have imagined when I started this in 2012. So I thank all the people who've been reading what I've had to write. Then in 2016, I decided, well, maybe it's time to do some podcasting. I'd had a radio background. I had to learn podcasting. There's some more technical things I needed to know about that. Knew a little bit about audio production and started those in 2016. Mayor Scott Fadness was kind enough to be my first guest and I'm continuing to do those. Some are on video. These Fridays with Larry are both on audio and video. You can listen or watch, whatever you like to do. But I started that 2012 and the podcast in 2016 and just started, with video, playing around with that here in recent years. But there's some things that I want to tell you about that I'm most proud of discussing. I won 3 awards that I think are worth mentioning. I earned the numbers in the federal government. I won't go through all that as a manager and as an employee. It was an honor to get those. But there are 3 I can be proud of. Number one, and you'll see a picture of this, is an award from the Associated Press. It was in the rural division. Columbus was of a market size that we were classified as a rural station. So that's the area where I was competing. And I was able to win an Associated Press award for coverage that I had done for the Columbus school system, the Bartholomew Consolidated Schools. It included Columbus and a lot of the rest of the county, except for 2 townships. So I'm very proud of that. Covering education was one of the greatest moments I ever had. Loved to death covering education in Columbus, Indiana. Learned a lot in that experience. Then, of course, I started the news blog, and then, of course, I started these podcasts, audio, and then the video came a little later. And I have 2 awards that I won. Well, that one's not really an award, but there's one award I'm extremely proud of, and that was the Jefferson Award. And the Jefferson Award is for people who volunteer in their community. Now, I've only taken on commercial sponsorship here in recent months, but for most of this time that I have been doing these podcasts and also my news website, I have not received any money. I've just done that recently, and it's mostly to cover expenses I have and have had over the last 14, 15 years. but I was very proud that at that time I was just a volunteer, and the Jefferson Award is something given to people who volunteer in their communities. I remember talking just to the people around my table, all the wonderful things that they had done. I kind of felt like I wasn't necessarily deserving to be with them, but felt extremely proud of that. Another, I won't say award, but recognition that I received came from Mike Fossil. He's now retired, but he did a We the People program at Fishers Junior High School, and they needed to prepare for national competition. It's the first time they've been in national competition. And trying to find somebody to be a volunteer judge was difficult during the workday. So he contacted me. Being mostly retired, I was at least able to come over and help out as a volunteer judge to get these young people ready for their national competition. They won a national championship. So I'm extremely proud of playing one small part in their preparation for that. And in subsequent years, Fishers Junior High School won several more national championships in the We the People competition, which is really a test of civic knowledge, understanding American history, understanding government, all the way back to the beginnings of America. So very proud of that. So what I have just wanted to do in this podcast this week, talk about myself a little bit, just because people ask me about my background. I think moving to Fishers in 1991 was an important thing, and not only for that, but that was the year that I married Jane Johnson, who became Jane Lannon. And that was a big thing. I married very late in life. I married at age 39 for the first time, and I'm still married to my lovely wife. Somehow she puts up with me. And we have twin daughters, Allison and Mary. They're 32 years old now. They are parents themselves. So we have 3 grandchildren and are so proud of that. So I want to thank you very, very much for being a part of this. You've watched me on these video podcasts. You've listened to the audio podcasts. And if it weren't for you, there's no reason for me to be doing any of this. So I thank you for your interest. I thank you for the fact that you're watching or listening right now. And I thank Citizens State Bank for choosing to sponsor the podcast series. I know it was a big decision for them, and it's an honor for me to be associated with them. So next week we'll have something different, but this week I just thought I would up this a little bit differently, move things up a little bit or down a little bit, however you might want to look at it. We change it up mostly so that you can know a little bit about my background. It's not everything. It's just what I can say in a short podcast. But it's an honor to have been a part of Fishers, to have had a front row seat to the growth and maturation of the town and now the city of Fishers. It has been it's been a great experience. And, even at age 74, I'm still going. So hopefully there's more to come. So once again, thank you for watching and listening. And once again, thanks to Citizens State Bank for sponsoring this episode of Fridays with Larry. Learn more about their business and personal banking options at mycsbin.com/Larry. Or stop by their Fishers branch at the Thomas A. Weaver Municipal Complex. Thanks again to Citizens State Bank, member FDIC and equal housing lender, for supporting local journalism in Fishers.